Did you know that in most presidential elections going back something like 150 years, whoever Ohio chooses ends up winning for the most part? Not in every case, but basically when Ohio, goes red or goes blue, if it goes red, the Republican wins. If it goes blue, the Democrat wins. This is really important. I don't know if that means Ohio is like the linchpin for the election. You have to win Ohio. Typically, winning Ohio is really good. Well, I should say every single time someone's won Ohio, most of the time someone's won Ohio, they won. And that's why this story is so interesting. From BuzzFeed News, Democrats nearly got wiped out in Ohio and can't figure out what to do next. Democrats in and outside of Ohio are arguing over whether or not the state is worth the party's time in 2020, all while Senator Sherrod Brown weighs a presidential campaign. Let me just point this out. I'm going to jump over here real quick. This is a story from WVXU Cincinnati, Ohio. When it comes to choosing presidents, you're it, no doubt about it. They looked at presidential elections dating back to 1896 and found that no state had a higher percentage of picking the winner. 28 of 30, 93% of the time that Ohio votes for somebody, they win. From BuzzFeed News, National Party operatives frightened by Donald Trump's 8-point win in 2016 and equally dreadful midterm election results this month have begun to consider writing off the once indisputable battleground state, no longer confident it is worthy of substantial investment in future elections. Many Democrats on the ground here disagree, but they are sniping at each other and deflecting blame for a cycle in which only one of their candidates, Sherrod Brown, won statewide. And all of this is happening as Brown, a pro-labor progressive, considers a run for president, a campaign that would be rooted in his Ohio success, but also potentially weakened by a fractious state party. It's a hard state to win, Brown told BuzzFeed News in an interview this week. It's clearly becoming more conservative, a bit older. We still have too many young people leaving. We don't have enough people moving in, so it's increasingly hard. And we see fewer workers in unions, which makes it harder, Hillary Clinton, on my main channel video for the day, is talking about stemming migration in Europe. And as I stated in that video, I think she's doing it as a ploy to try and win back people like this, people in Ohio, working class, middle-aged, family people, who understand that immigration is dangerous insofar as it could disrupt job wages, it could disrupt job market competition, things like that. For the most part, immigration by most people in this country is seen as a good thing. But illegal and uncontrolled immigration can be dangerous. To clarify, I know that'll probably get taken out of context by somebody. But what I'm curious about right now is if the Democrats walk away from Ohio, and Ohio 93% of the time predicts the president, what does that mean? Does it mean Ohio is necessary to win for the most part? I mean, correlation and causation and that kind of stuff. But I think it's fair to say that Ohio plays a huge role in whoever wins. If the Democrats walk away from this, if they don't try to get Ohio, are they going to keep losing? The tensions were inflamed last week by Michael Hall, the campaign manager for losing Democratic gubernatorial candidate Richard Cordray, who was paraphrased by the New York Times saying that Democrats should give up on the traditional battlegrounds of Iowa and Ohio in favor of Arizona and Georgia. It's kind of scary because Ohio and Iowa are two states that Obama won in both his presidential campaigns, and now they're just not competitive in the way they once were. Maybe it's because the left continues to demonize white people. And maybe people who are white, who make up 63% of this country, don't like being demonized when they when they themselves did nothing wrong. You can go on all day and night about white privilege, this, that, and otherwise, but when you have poor people, working class people, who don't live near you, who are not racist, and then you blame them all across the media far and wide. Bernie Sanders on the stage saying white people don't know what it's like to be poor. What do you think that says to people in Ohio? And now they have young people leaving. And this one thing that's really interesting that I think should be brought up about all this all this election stuff. Young people want to live in cities, and they flee many boring states because big cities are more fun. But the way the electoral system works, it's not necessarily going to benefit them if they all move to New York and Los Angeles. If young, Democrats and leftists go to the big cities and then other states like Ohio that people don't think, or Iowa, turn red, that's a massive gain for Republicans. It is not about the popular vote. We are not a democracy. We are a democratic republic. And we have rules on purpose to protect rural areas. And that means when all these young Democrats move to big cities, they're actually weakening their base. Ohio Democrats had high hopes this year with Cordray, the state's former attorney general and the nation's former top consumer watchdog. His campaign emphasized his nerdy background as a former Jeopardy champion and ran heavily on health care, a nationalized issue that other Democrats' gubernatorial candidates across the country had found success with. Democratic gubernatorial candidates. Polling in the final days showed either a tie or a slight lead for Cordray. He lost by 4 points to Republican Mike DeWine. And one thing that keeps getting brought up as well is the Trump base is a hidden 3% boost. They're saying that it looked like a tie. That's what they said, right? That he ran on healthcare and that it was close. However, he still ended up losing by 4 points because the Trump voters come out and the polls don't find them. Democrats turned out in high numbers, but the voters Trump attracted in 2016, many of them from the rural and blue-collar parts of southern Ohio, came back in 2018 to vote for DeWine. Democrats are left with not quite moral victories. Cordray was the first Ohio gubernatorial candidate to get 2 million votes and lose. And Democrats nearly matched Republicans in the cumulative share of votes in the state legislative races, but have little to show for it because of Republican gerrymandering. Ohio Democratic Party Chair David Pepper also sees a silver lining in the election this month of 2 Democratic Ohio Supreme Court justices in nonpartisan contests where neither was identified as a Democrat on the ballot. When I became chair, Pepper told BuzzFeed News, one of the biggest criticisms was, you guys, even when you have good years, you've lost Supreme Court races. For Democrats looking ahead to 2020, though, the results signaled more challenging terrain in the state long considered the tipping point to 270 electoral votes. Even Brown's 6-point win over Republican Jim Renacci this month was on par with his winning margin 6 years ago against a stronger opponent. Hall wasn't saying anything that others weren't already thinking. Reached this week, other Democratic operatives voiced a similar view, albeit more carefully. Ohio's always been tough, but I don't think you can look at this fall's election returns and the results nationally and not be disappointed, said Mark Longabaugh, a Democratic strategist who ran Bill Clinton's Ohio campaign in 1992 and last month helped Aftab Purival's unsuccessful House campaign in the state's first congressional district. The wave, such as it was, just did not impact Ohio. And frankly, even though Sherrod Brown won a nice clean victory, you can't really say it was a blowout. I think Ohio proved to be a harder state among the Midwestern states in terms of the demographics here, said Jared Leopold, a spokesperson for the Democratic Governors Association. The group charged with recruiting and electing the party's gubernatorial candidates. But it's a state that Trump won by 8 and Cordray lost by 4. While Sherrod won, yes, we all did what we could to win, and a loss is a loss is a loss, but it's not like Ohio is Wyoming now. But the numbers are shifting, okay? What did they say? It was a 4-point drop that, Cordray lost by 4 points. If Ohio is a red state now, it is no longer a battleground state, and Ohio consistently picks the president. What does that mean for 2020? And I'm going to say this too. I firmly believe. I think Hillary Clinton will be a tough challenger for Trump, of course, but I still think she'll lose. She is a corporate crony elitist. She is the opposite of a person of the people. Even though Donald Trump's a billionaire, he still has that within him. They still call him the populist. He's still speaking to the average person. If Ohio's out of the question, what do the Democrats have? How do they make up those electoral votes? Dare I say it, if they lose Ohio, and Ohio often chooses the president, the Democrats just not win anymore. I don't want to spend too much time reading through the minutia of their interviews, but let's go to their final statement and see what they have to say. But Brown told BuzzFeed News this week that he would be less inclined to run for president if another Democrat proved capable of succeeding with his pro-worker message. A harmonious state party chaired by a loyalist who would be an asset to Brown if it helped him organize his 2020 campaign and made it tougher for other contenders to reach Ohio votes during the primary. Since Election Day, though, there have been private rumblings that Brown wouldn't mind Pepper being replaced. He supported 2 of Pepper's rivals for chair in 2014, but wading into an intramural fight now also could backfire if Brown again fails to get the leader he prefers. Brown indicated this week that if he is comfortable with Pepper, who serves at the pleasure of the state's party executive committee, I always have concerns about everything in a political party, but we're talking to David, and David will marry. I don't care about any of that stuff. We're going to skip through it because I don't think most of you probably would. What I'm concerned with now, this is the image BuzzFeed runs. It is a hole. It is meant to be like a gap, and it's red. If Ohio turns red, the Democrats are out. And if the Democrats give up, how do they win? How do they win in 2020? I think that's the gist of it. I think you can understand it. Basically, with the gains made by Donald Trump, 8 points, and the defeat of Cordray by 4 points, it stands to reason that Ohio may have turned red, and Trump is probably going to win in 2020. Anyway, that's about it. I've got a couple more videos coming up in just a few minutes, so stick around and I'll see you then.